At the company town hall, my mentor, the one I trusted most, smirked and said into the mic, "She's like a puppy, loyal, eager, and a little too dumb to know when she's being used." The entire room laughed as he winked at me. I smiled through gritted teeth, then quietly submitted a full dossier of his misconduct to compliance. When he lost his job and his reputation in 1 week, he finally realized who had been paying attention all along. I work at Harper Tech, one of those mid-sized software firms that pretends to care about culture but really just wants the quarterly numbers to look good. It's the kind of place where people smile too wide during meetings and throw each other under the bus before lunch. I joined the Tulsa branch 3 years ago. I was 27 and way too trusting. Fresh out of grad school, full of ideas, hungry to prove myself. I was nervous but excited. I didn't know how things really worked yet. Rick Callahan was one of the senior VPs. Everyone looked up to him. He had the office with the big windows, laughed too loud, and always had something clever to say. People called him a people person. He knew everyone's birthday. Brought donuts in once a month. Seemed like the kind of guy you wanted in your corner. So when he pulled me aside on my second week and said, "You've got potential. Let me help you get where you want to go," I felt like I hit the jackpot. I thought he saw something in me. I thought I was lucky. For the first year, he really did mentor me. He showed me how to write the perfect client email, how to pitch to execs, how to look confident even when you weren't. He invited me to strategy meetings, let me sit in on high-level calls. He'd introduce me with a proud "this one's going places." But it didn't stay like that. Little things started happening. Jokes that made people shift in their seats. Comments that sounded off but were always said with a laugh so you couldn't really call him out without looking uptight. Things like, "She works harder than she needs to. Guess she doesn't know how the game's played yet." Or "She's loyal, I'll give her that." Naive, but loyal. I started to feel like he was testing me. Seeing how much I'd take. But every time I thought about pulling back, he'd give me praise again or put me on another important project. It messed with my head. He also took credit. A lot. I'd write a proposal, he'd present it and say we worked on it. I'd land a tough client, he'd step in and say it was because of his long-standing relationship. When I brought it up once, he laughed and said, "It's how things work around here. You'll get yours in time." I stayed quiet. I thought maybe this was just how the corporate world was. And honestly, I didn't want to seem ungrateful. I thought he was protecting me. Then came the company town hall. Harper Tech does these big all-hands meetings every quarter. It's live-streamed to all branches. There's always a few key speakers. This time, Rick was one of them. The theme was mentorship and growth. I was sitting near the front with my team. Rick went up there, all charm and confidence, talking about how important it is to support young professionals. Then, completely out of nowhere, he pointed right at me. He said, "She's like a puppy. Loyal, eager, and a little too dumb to know when she's being used." The room exploded in laughter. Not nervous laughter, real, full-belly laughs. A few people looked over at me, trying to figure out if I was in on the joke. Rick just winked at me and kept going. I smiled. But inside, I broke. Something in me snapped that day. It wasn't just the insult, it was the way he said it, like he knew I wouldn't fight back. Like he thought he owned me. Like I was something to be mocked in front of the entire company. After everything I'd done. After everything I'd let slide. That night, I went home and poured myself a drink. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there and started digging. I went through every email, every Slack message, every project folder. I started building a timeline. I cross-referenced comments, pulled copies of proposals I'd written, screenshots of inappropriate jokes, messages where he'd brushed off my ideas then presented them as his own. It was all there, buried in the noise, but clear if you looked close. Then I reached out to a few coworkers. Carefully. Quietly. I asked if they'd ever felt off about Rick. Some ignored me. A few didn't. One woman from finance sent me a message that just said, "I've been waiting for someone to say something." Turns out I wasn't alone. I put everything together. Neatly. Professionally. I wrote a report with dates, attachments, testimonials. I didn't make it emotional. I just made it clear. Then I sent it to compliance. No warning. No heads up. I didn't want a confrontation. I wanted consequences. 4 days later, Rick was suspended pending investigation. 2 days after that, he was gone. The official email said he had violated company code of conduct. HR offered to schedule optional one-on-ones for anyone who may have been impacted by prior leadership behaviors. People started whispering. Some asked if I knew what happened. I just shrugged. Rick tried to call me once. I let it ring. He sent one email. "We should talk. Please." I deleted it. A week later, I saw him in the garage, packing up the last of his things. He looked thinner, like he hadn't been sleeping. His tie was loose. He didn't look like the Rick I knew. He saw me. He started to say something. I smiled. Then I turned and walked away. Some people laugh at puppies. But they forget, even the loyal ones bite when they've had enough. After Rick left, things changed fast at work. People were nicer to me, or maybe just more careful. I got a quiet thumbs up from someone in accounting I'd never even spoken to before. My manager, Lori, started including me in more meetings. She even mentioned there might be a promotion coming if I kept showing leadership. I should have felt proud. But I didn't. Not really. Because something else started happening. A week after Rick was fired, I got a text from an unknown number. That was a smart move. Dangerous, but smart. No name. I blocked it. 2 days later, I noticed someone had gone through my desk drawers. Nothing was missing, but my things were out of place. I hadn't told anyone about the complaint except HR, and they swore it would stay confidential. But someone was digging. Then came the email. It wasn't from Rick, at least, not directly. It was from a personal Gmail account with a name I didn't recognize. The subject line was "Truth always comes out." Inside was a copy of a photo from 2 years ago. Me and Rick at a company retreat, sitting by the fire. We were laughing. He had his arm around my shoulder. There was no context. Just the image, and a single line, "Everyone sees what they want to see. Remember that." I felt sick. I forwarded the email to compliance. They said they'd look into it, but nothing came of it. I asked if they'd kept my report confidential. They swore they had. But I wasn't stupid. Someone in that department must have talked. That's when the whispers started. I'd walk into the break room and conversations would stop. I'd hear people say things like, "She always wanted his job anyway," or "She played that just right." One person even asked me outright, "So how long were you planning to take him down?" It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. Turns out, in a company like Harper Tech, people don't like having their comfort disrupted. Rick had been there for over a decade. He brought in clients. He made people laugh. He was part of the furniture. I wasn't. The worst part? Some people believed I'd made it all up to climb the ladder. That I'd used Rick, then thrown him under the bus. One afternoon, I walked into the shared kitchen and found someone had stuck a note on the fridge. It said, "Be careful who you trust. Some puppies bite their owners." I ripped it down, but my hands were shaking. I wasn't scared. I was pissed. Because while everyone was gossiping about whether I was a backstabber or a liar, no one was talking about what Rick actually did. No one mentioned the way he spoke to me, the way he stole credit, the way he treated younger women in meetings. It was all about me now. About whether I was cold or ambitious or manipulative. The guy who humiliated me on stage was gone. But somehow, I was still being punished. So I started watching. Listening. Paying attention the way Rick used to. And I started finding things. Things about other people. It started with Scott in business development. He was loud, always laughing, always covering for people during happy hours. Rick's old drinking buddy. After Rick got fired, Scott avoided me completely. Wouldn't make eye contact in meetings. Wouldn't speak to me unless someone else was around. So I paid attention. During one of our weekly ops reviews, Scott was presenting numbers from a client he managed. I caught a discrepancy, a gap between what was billed and what was recorded in the CRM. It was subtle. Easy to miss. But once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I quietly pulled up a few more files. He was double reporting work. Logging hours against 2 separate contracts for the same project. It wasn't just sloppy, it was fraud. I saved the files. I didn't submit them. Not yet. Instead, I started mapping who had been close with Rick. Who had covered for him. Who had things to lose if the culture changed. Turns out, there was a whole network. People like Jenna from HR, who used to flirt openly with Rick in the hallways but went dead silent once he got fired. She was the one who told me my complaint would stay strictly confidential. I stopped trusting her completely. Then there was Mike in marketing. He once told me, laughing, Rick might be an ass, but he knows how to win. I found an old email chain where Rick looped in Mike on a strategy proposal, one I had written, and Mike had passed it up to corporate under his own name. They'd been propping each other up for years. Scratching backs. Covering tracks. The more I looked, the more I saw how deep it went. Rick wasn't the only problem. He was just the flashiest. The loudest. The one who got caught first. The others were still hiding, hoping things would blow over. So I changed strategy. I started copying myself on everything. Every file. Every conversation. Every shared doc. I'd accidentally CC legal on projects that felt shady. I asked questions in meetings that made people squirm. I wasn't rude. I wasn't confrontational. I just made it clear I was watching now. And the fear started to shift. People began to avoid me not because they thought I was a backstabber, but because they weren't sure how much I knew. One afternoon, Scott cornered me in the hallway, smiling too wide. "Hey," he said, lowering his voice, "we're all trying to move on from what happened. Just, don't stir up more trouble, okay?" I didn't answer. He stepped closer. "You're smart. Just don't forget who helped you get where you are." That's when I knew I had him. I submitted the report on Scott the next morning. It took 5 days. Then came the meeting invites. Internal audit review. Client reporting inconsistencies. By the end of the week, he was suspended. The office got quiet after that. Tense. People stopped laughing in the hallways. A few started treating me with something close to respect. Others just looked scared. They still called me a puppy behind my back. But now they said it like a warning. It didn't take long after Scott got axed for the rest to start falling apart. Mike in marketing was next. I didn't even have to do much. Once they started auditing Scott's records, Mike's name came up in old billing approvals. He panicked and tried to delete a few shared folders. IT caught it. He was gone within a week. Then Jenna, the HR rep who told me my report would stay private, she took a personal leave. That's what the email said. But I heard from someone in payroll she was placed on leave after it came out that she had warned Rick about 2 other complaints before mine. It was like pulling one thread, and the whole sweater came undone. I thought I'd feel satisfied. I didn't. Because the truth is, I didn't start out trying to clean house. I wasn't some corporate whistleblower. I just wanted to make one man pay for humiliating me. But somewhere along the way, I became the person people feared, and maybe not always for the right reasons. I started avoiding the break room. I stopped joining team lunches. Even Lori, my boss, got weird around me. She said things like, "You've been through a lot, maybe it's time to just focus on your own work again." Like she was warning me. Then came the last twist. I got called into a meeting with legal. Not compliance, legal. They had questions. Did you access private personnel files during your review of Rick's conduct? Did you encourage other employees to share confidential data? Have you retained copies of company documents offsite? I kept my answers short. Careful. But I knew the moment I walked out of that room, someone had flipped the story. They were building a case against me. Not because I broke rules. But because I knew too much now. Because I'd taken down people in power. Because I'd made myself a threat. A week later, I got the email. Due to restructuring following recent investigations, your role has been eliminated. No warning. No performance review. Just done. They gave me a severance check and a signed NDA. I didn't fight it. I took the check, signed the papers, and walked out without saying goodbye. And that should be the end, right? Hero takes down the villain, gets burned in the process. Learns a lesson. Moves on. But here's the thing. While they were trying to bury me, I was already 5 steps ahead. See, when you document everything, and I mean everything, you don't just protect yourself. You build leverage. Real leverage. I never kept those files out of revenge. I kept them because I knew this company didn't want truth, it wanted silence. So I sent one anonymous email. 1. To a reporter who'd been digging into workplace misconduct in mid-sized tech firms. I attached a redacted version of my original report, plus the timelines on Scott, Mike, Jenna. No names. Just patterns. A month later, HarperTech made the news. Former employees allege pattern of toxic leadership and retaliation. The article didn't name me. It didn't have to. The story was out. The stock dropped. The board fired the regional director. HR leadership resigned. And Rick? I heard he applied to 3 firms in the Midwest and got rejected from all of them. Word travels fast in tech. Turns out, companies don't want to take a chance on a guy who let a loyal, dumb puppy bring down half his leadership team. As for me? I got offers. Not from tech firms. From compliance groups. Investigators. Even a law firm that specializes in corporate ethics. Apparently, when you bite back hard enough, people start to respect the teeth. I'm not proud of everything I did. I stayed quiet too long. I trusted the wrong people. I let myself be used. But in the end, I made sure every single one of them knew exactly what I was capable of. Because I may have started out like a puppy. But I left like a goddamn wolf.